Maya Torres thought she knew every street in her city. Every shortcut. Every alley. Every crossing. She was wrong. The bridge appeared on the worst night of her life. One moment, familiar concrete and streetlights. The next, an impossible structure rising from the pavement like a secret the city had been keeping. Victorian lampposts burning blue instead of yellow. Mist that glowed silver and lavender. Wooden planks that made no sound beneath her feet. And standing at its center, a woman in a dress from 1967. Eleanor Finch had been waiting on that bridge for 57 years. Trapped. Unable to move forward or back. Imprisoned by a single choice she made when she was 19 years old. A choice that killed a man on a freezing November night. A choice that created ripples she could never have imagined. But here is what Maya did not know that night. What none of them knew. That one act of cruelty could transform into decades of compassion. That a son could spend 15 years saving the father he lost. That karma was not punishment but balance. That forgiveness was not about deserving, but about releasing what no longer served you. The bridge between dreams existed for people carrying weight too heavy to bear alone. And once you crossed it, once you faced what you had broken and chose to build something better, you could never go back to who you were before. This is the story of an impossible bridge. A ghost seeking redemption. A son choosing grace over anger. And a nurse who learned that sometimes the people we save end up saving us right back. Some bridges connect places. This one connected souls. And it changed everything. Maya Torres had forgotten what it felt like to breathe without her chest aching. 34 years old, 12-hour shifts bleeding into 16, and tonight she had watched Mr. Patterson slip away despite everything she had done. Every compression. Every desperate attempt. The monitor's flat line still echoed in her ears as she walked through the hospital parking garage, her scrubs heavy with the weight of failure. The city air hit her face cold and indifferent. October wind carried the smell of rain and distant traffic. She should go home. She should eat something. She should sleep. But the thought of her empty apartment, the silence waiting there, felt worse than exhaustion. So Maya walked. Her feet carried her through streets she knew by heart. Past the corner bodega where she bought coffee every morning. Past the park where homeless men huddled under newspaper blankets. Past everything familiar until nothing was familiar anymore. She had taken a wrong turn somewhere. Or maybe a right turn she had never noticed before. The street narrowed. Old brick buildings pressed close on either side, their windows dark and watching. Streetlights flickered orange and dim. And there, rising from the pavement like a secret, stood a bridge. Maya stopped. She had lived in this city for 8 years. She knew every shortcut, every alley, every crossing. But this bridge, this structure of old iron and wooden planks, had never existed in her geography until this exact moment. Mist crawled across its surface, thick and silver in the darkness. The bridge stretched maybe 50 feet, connecting nothing to nothing. Both ends simply faded into fog, destination unclear. Victorian lampposts lined its edges, their gas flames burning blue instead of yellow. Impossible. But Maya was too tired to question impossible things. Too numb to care about logic. So she stepped onto the bridge. The moment her foot touched the first wooden plank, everything changed. Sound died. The distant hum of traffic vanished. The wind stopped mid-breath. Even her own footsteps made no noise against the wood. But it was not silence. It was the absence of noise, which somehow felt louder than any scream. Colors shifted. The mist glowed pearl and lavender. The iron railings shimmered bronze and copper. The lampposts burned with flames that moved like liquid sapphire. Everything became more vivid, more real, as if the regular world had been a faded photograph and this bridge was the original. Time stretched. Each step Maya took seemed to last minutes. Or seconds. She could not tell anymore. Her watch had stopped at exactly midnight, the second hand frozen mid-tick. And there, standing at the center of the bridge, was a woman. She wore a dress from another era. Navy blue with white collar, hem falling past her knees, the kind of outfit Maya had seen in photographs from her grandmother's youth. Her hair was silver, pinned back in careful waves. Her face held lines earned through decades, but her eyes were sharp and clear and desperately sad. The woman was staring down at her hands as if they held answers she could not read. Maya approached slowly. Her nurse instincts kicked in, checking for signs of distress. The woman was breathing, standing steady. But something about her presence felt wrong. Not threatening, just wrong, like a photograph slightly out of focus. "Excuse me," Maya said. Her voice sounded strange here, muffled and distant. "Are you okay?" The woman looked up. Recognition flashed across her face, but not the kind that comes from knowing someone. It was the recognition of someone who had been waiting for exactly this moment. "You can see me," the woman said. Not a question. A statement of wonder. "Of course I can see you," Maya replied. "Why wouldn't I?" "Because most people don't. They walk right through." The woman smiled, but it was the saddest smile Maya had ever witnessed. "My name is Eleanor Finch. I have been standing on this bridge for a very long time." Maya moved closer, her medical training searching for explanations. Dementia, perhaps. Confusion. But Eleanor's eyes were too clear, too present. "How long?" Maya asked. 57 years, 4 months, and 16 days. Eleanor said it without hesitation, as if she had been counting every single one. Since November 3, 1967. The air grew colder. Maya pulled her jacket tighter, but the chill came from inside, not out. "That's not possible," Maya said. "Many impossible things are true." Eleanor turned to face her fully. "Tell me, dear. How did you find this bridge?" "I just walked. I was upset and I walked and I ended up here." Eleanor nodded, as if this explained everything. The bridge only appears to certain people. Those carrying weight. Those burdened by regret or guilt or grief. Those who stand between who they are and who they wish they could be. Maya thought of Mr. Patterson. The way his daughter had screamed when Maya came out to deliver the news. The way Maya had stood there, professional and calm, while inside she shattered into 1,000 pieces she would never be able to collect. "What is this place?" Maya whispered. "A crossing," Eleanor said simply. "Between waking and dreaming. Between what was and what could be. Between holding on and letting go." She gestured at the mist surrounding them. "Some call it purgatory. Others call it a way station. I simply call it the place where I am stuck." "Why are you stuck?" Eleanor's face crumpled. Decades of sorrow pressed through in a single expression. She sat down on the bridge, her vintage dress pooling around her, and for a moment she looked like a painting from a museum, beautiful and untouchable and heartbreakingly human. "Because I did something unforgivable," Eleanor said. "And I have been paying for it ever since." Maya sat beside her. The wooden planks felt solid beneath her, real in a way that contradicted everything else about this strange place. She did not know why she stayed. Did not know why she cared about a woman who claimed to have been trapped on a bridge for over half a century. But something in Eleanor's voice called to the ache inside Maya's chest, the one that had been growing with every patient lost, every life she could not save. "Tell me," Maya said. Eleanor looked at her with gratitude, as if being heard was a gift she had not received in decades. "It was November," Eleanor began. 1967. I was 19 years old, living in my first apartment, working as a secretary downtown. I thought I was so sophisticated, so independent. So much better than where I came from. She paused, staring into the mist as if she could see that night playing out before her. I was walking home from a party. Late. Maybe 2 in the morning. I was wearing my nicest dress, carrying my good purse. I felt like someone important, someone who had made something of herself. And then I saw him. "Who?" Maya asked gently. "A man. Older, maybe 50. His clothes were ragged, dirty. He was shaking from the cold. November in this city, you know how bitter it gets. He stood under a street light, and when he saw me coming he stepped forward. Not aggressive. Just desperate. And he asked me for help." Eleanor's hands twisted in her lap. "He said he needed money for a room. Just for one night. It was going to drop below freezing. He showed me his hands. They were blue, Maya. Blue from the cold. And he looked at me with these eyes, these pleading eyes, and he said, 'Please. Just please.'" Maya felt her stomach tighten. "I told him no," Eleanor whispered. I clutched my purse tighter. I thought about my nice dress, my good shoes, my sophisticated life. I thought he was probably a drunk or a junkie. I thought he would just waste the money. I thought I had worked hard for what I had, and why should I give it away to someone who had not worked hard enough for themselves? Tears tracked down Eleanor's face, silver in the strange light. I told him no and I walked away. I heard him calling after me, but I did not turn around. I went home to my warm apartment, and I slept in my comfortable bed, and I never thought about him again. Until, Maya prompted, until 3 days later when I saw his photograph in the newspaper. They found him in an alley 6 blocks from where I had left him. Frozen to death. His name was Henry Whitmore, 62 years old. A veteran who had fallen on hard times after his wife died. He had a son somewhere, the article said. A little boy who was now an orphan. Eleanor covered her face with her hands. I killed him, Maya. As surely as if I had pushed him into that alley myself. I had the money. I could have helped. It would have cost me so little and meant everything to him. But I chose my comfort over his life. And he died because of it. The bridge seemed to pulse with her confession. The mist grew thicker, the blue flames burned brighter, and Maya felt the weight of Eleanor's guilt like a physical presence pressing down on both of them. I tried to find his son, Eleanor continued, to make amends somehow. But the boy had been sent to relatives in another state. I donated money to shelters. I volunteered. I spent the rest of my life trying to balance the scales. But nothing worked. Because you cannot undo death. You cannot bring back what you have taken. It was not your fault, Maya said, but the words felt hollow even as she spoke them. Was it not? Eleanor looked at her. I had a choice. I chose wrong. And a man died. That is fault, Maya. That is responsibility. That is karma coming due. So you have been here ever since? For 57 years? The night I died, I was 76 years old. I went to sleep in a hospital bed, surrounded by nurses like you, and I simply did not wake up. But I did not move on either. I found myself here instead. On this bridge. Unable to go forward. Unable to go back. Just standing here, watching other burdened souls cross through, helping when I can, but never able to cross myself. Maya's mind raced. None of this made sense. Ghosts were not real. Purgatory was not real. Bridges that appeared only to the guilty were not real. But Eleanor felt real. The bridge felt real. And Maya's exhaustion, her grief, her crushing sense of inadequacy, all of that was devastatingly real. Why are you telling me this? Maya asked. Eleanor turned to her with sudden intensity. Because you are the first person in decades who has stopped to listen. Most people who find this bridge are so lost in their own pain that they walk straight through without even seeing me. But you stopped. You asked. You cared. I am a nurse, Maya said. It is what I do. No, Eleanor said firmly. It is who you are. There is a difference. They sat in silence for a moment. The mist swirled around them, patient and eternal. Can I help you? Maya asked finally. Is there a way to free you from this place? Eleanor's expression shifted. Hope flickered across her face, fragile as candlelight. I do not know, she admitted. I have been waiting for so long. Waiting for someone who could help me make amends. Someone who could reach across the years and somehow balance what I broke. But I do not know if such a thing is even possible. Maya stood up. Her exhaustion had transformed into something else. Purpose, maybe. Or just the desperate need to help someone, anyone, after failing to help Mr. Patterson. Tell me about Henry Whitmore, Maya said. Tell me everything you remember. His son's name. Where the relatives lived. Anything that might help me find what happened to his family. Eleanor stared at her as if Maya had just offered her salvation. His son's name was Robert, Eleanor said, speaking quickly now urgently. Robert Whitmore. He would have been about 4 years old when his father died. The newspaper said he was sent to live with an aunt in Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh, I think. Or maybe Philadelphia. Maya pulled out her phone, but the screen remained black. Dead, just like her watch. Time and technology had no power here. I will remember, Maya promised. When I leave this bridge, I will find Robert Whitmore. Or his family. Someone who knew Henry. And I will tell them that you are sorry. That you have spent decades carrying this guilt. That you want to make amends. Eleanor reached out and grabbed Maya's hands. Her grip was solid, warm, real. Why would you do this for me? Eleanor asked. You do not know me. Maya thought about Mr. Patterson again. About all the patients she had lost. About the weight she carried, the guilt that told her she should have done more, been better, tried harder. Because I know what it feels like to believe you have failed someone, Maya said. And I know what it would mean to find forgiveness. Eleanor pulled her into a hug. Maya felt the woman's tears on her shoulder, hot and human and achingly real. They stood there on the impossible bridge, two souls carrying weight too heavy to bear alone, holding each other up against the darkness. When Eleanor finally pulled back, she was smiling. Really smiling, with light in her eyes that had been absent before. Thank you, Eleanor whispered. Even if you cannot help, thank you for trying. Thank you for seeing me. Thank you for listening. Maya squeezed her hands. I will come back. I promise. I will find Robert Whitmore and I will come back. She turned to leave, but Eleanor called after her. Maya. One more thing. Maya looked back. The patient you lost tonight. The one you are carrying. That was not your fault either. You did everything you could. Sometimes people die not because we failed them, but because death was always going to win that particular battle. You cannot save everyone. But that does not mean you did not matter. It does not mean your trying was worthless. Maya's throat tightened. Tears blurred her vision. How did you know? She managed to ask. Eleanor smiled sadly. Because I recognized the look. The weight. The guilt that serves no purpose except to crush us. I have been carrying it for 57 years. Do not carry yours for even one more day. Maya nodded, unable to speak. She turned and walked back the way she had come, each step returning sound and color and time to their normal rhythms. The mist parted before her. The blue flames flickered back to regular yellow. The world rushed back in with all its noise and chaos and pain. When she reached the end of the bridge and stepped back onto regular pavement, she turned around. The bridge was gone. Just empty street where it had stood, as if it had never existed at all. But Maya's watch had started again. She pulled out her phone. The screen lit up. 3:27 in the morning. Maya opened her browser and typed, Robert Whitmore, son of Henry Whitmore, died 1967. The search would take time. But Maya had made a promise to a ghost on an impossible bridge, and she intended to keep it. Behind her, unseen and unknowable, the bridge shimmered back into existence for just a moment. And on it, Eleanor Finch stood smiling, hope burning in her chest for the first time in over half a century. Maya spent 3 weeks hunting ghosts. Not the supernatural kind, though after meeting Eleanor she was no longer sure where that line existed. No, she hunted the ghosts that lived in public records, old newspaper archives, and the fading memories of people who had lived through decades she had never seen. Robert Whitmore proved difficult to find. Maya started with the original newspaper article Eleanor had mentioned. The public library kept microfiche records going back to the early 1900s, rows and rows of plastic sheets containing faded newsprint. She spent her lunch breaks scrolling through November 1967, her eyes aching from the dim light and small text. She found it on her 4th visit. Buried on page 7 between an advertisement for washing machines and a story about a house fire. Local man found dead. Henry Whitmore, 62, discovered in alley off Morrison Street. Exposure suspected. Survived by son Robert, age 4. Services pending. 13 lines. An entire life reduced to 13 lines of newspaper copy. Maya photographed the article with her phone. Then she began the real work. City records showed Robert Whitmore had indeed been sent to Pennsylvania. Pittsburgh specifically. To live with a Margaret Whitmore, presumably Henry's sister. But the trail went cold after that. No forwarding addresses. No updated records. Nothing that showed where a 4-year-old boy had ended up after his father froze to death on a November night. Maya tried genealogy websites, social media searches, public records requests. She called libraries in Pittsburgh. She left messages with historical societies. She became the kind of person who said things like, I am researching family history, to strangers who answered phones with suspicion in their voices. And slowly, piece by piece, the story emerged. Margaret Whitmore had died in 1973. Robert had been placed with foster families after that. He had bounced around the system for years. The records were spotty, protected by privacy laws and simple chaos. But Maya was persistent. And persistence, she was learning, could crack open decades. She found him on a Tuesday afternoon in late November. Robert Whitmore, 52 years old now, living 2 hours north in a small town Maya had never heard of. He worked as a contractor, according to the address associated with his business license. Whitmore Construction. The website was simple, professional, showing pictures of renovated kitchens and new decks and smiling families in front of their improved homes. Maya stared at his photograph for a long time. He had his father's eyes, she thought, though she had never seen Henry Whitmore's face. Just something in the shape of them, the set of his jaw. He looked like a man who had built a good life from difficult beginnings. She almost called. Her finger hovered over the phone number listed on his website. But what would she say? Your father died because a 19-year-old girl refused to help him, and now her ghost is trapped on a magic bridge and needs your forgiveness? No. This required a face-to-face conversation. The kind where she could see his eyes and gauge his reaction, and run away if necessary. Maya requested a day off work. Her supervisor approved it immediately, concern written across her face. Maya had not taken a single day off in 8 months. She was overdue for a break, her supervisor said. She needed to take care of herself. If only her supervisor knew. The drive north took Maya through landscapes that shifted from urban sprawl to industrial decay to rural farmland. She watched the city fall away in her rearview mirror, replaced by open sky and bare trees, and the kind of space that made her lungs expand with unexpected relief. She found Whitmore Construction in a small commercial park at the edge of town. A modest office attached to a warehouse where she could see stacks of lumber and construction equipment through open doors. Pickup trucks parked in neat rows. Everything organized and maintained with obvious care. Maya sat in her car for 10 minutes, rehearsing speeches that all sounded insane. Finally, she forced herself out. The November air bit at her face, reminding her of Eleanor's story. Of Henry Whitmore standing under a streetlight, hands blue from cold, asking for help that never came. A bell chimed when she pushed open the office door. The interior was warm, heated by a small wood stove in the corner. Pictures of completed projects covered the walls. A desk sat near the window, papers organized in careful stacks, a computer monitor displaying what looked like architectural plans. And behind the desk stood Robert Whitmore. He was taller than his photograph suggested. Work-worn hands, flannel shirt, jeans with paint stains. His hair was starting to gray at the temples. His face was kind but guarded, the expression of someone who had learned early that the world required caution. "Can I help you?" he asked. Maya realized she had been staring. "Are you Robert Whitmore?" "I am. Are you here about a project?" "No. I am here about your father." The kindness in his face shuddered immediately. His shoulders tensed. Maya watched him age 10 years in an instant. "I do not talk about my father," Robert said. His voice had gone flat, carefully controlled. "If you are a journalist or a researcher or writing some kind of book, I am not interested." "I am not any of those things," Maya said quickly. "I am a nurse. And I met someone who knew your father. Someone who needs to speak with you." Robert crossed his arms. "My father died in 1967. Everyone who knew him is dead by now." "Not everyone," Maya said. And then, because there was no gentle way to say it, she told him everything. She told him about the bridge. About Eleanor Finch standing there for 57 years. About the night his father died and the guilt that had trapped a 19-year-old girl in eternal purgatory. She told him about karma and regret, and the impossible weight of choices we cannot take back. Robert listened without interrupting. His expression shifted from suspicion to confusion to something Maya could not quite read. When she finished, silence filled the small office, broken only by the crackle of wood burning in the stove. "You think I am crazy," Maya said finally. "I think you believe what you are saying," Robert replied carefully. "Whether that makes you crazy or makes the world stranger than I thought, I have not decided yet." He moved to the window, staring out at his trucks and his warehouse and the life he had built from nothing. "I never knew my father," Robert said quietly. "Not really. I have a few memories. Vague impressions. A man who smelled like cigarettes and lifted me onto his shoulders. But mostly I just have questions. Why did he end up in that alley? Why did no one help him? Why did he leave me alone?" "He did not want to leave you," Maya said. "He was trying to find shelter. He asked for help and was turned away." Robert turned to face her. "By this Eleanor woman?" "Yes. And now she wants my forgiveness, so she can move on from her magic bridge." "Yes." Robert laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "That is convenient for her. 57 years later, she decides she wants absolution. What about the 57 years I spent wondering if my father loved me enough to fight harder to stay alive? What about the foster homes and the families who did not want me, and the feeling that I was somehow responsible for his death, because if I had been a better son, maybe he would have tried harder?" Maya felt his pain like a physical blow. She had not considered this angle. Had not thought about how a son might carry his own guilt about a father's death. "Robert," she started, but he cut her off. "I built this," he said, gesturing around the office. "From nothing. No family. No support. No inheritance or connections or safety net. Just me and my hands and the determination to prove I was worth something. And you know what I learned?" Maya shook her head. "That the world is full of people who turn away when you need help. That you cannot count on anyone except yourself. That kindness is a luxury reserved for people who can afford it." He moved back to his desk, gripping the edge with white knuckles. "So no, I do not forgive Eleanor Finch. She made a choice. My father paid the price. That is how the world works. Actions have consequences. She can stay on her bridge forever for all I care." Maya felt her hope crumbling. She had been so focused on helping Eleanor that she had not fully considered what she was asking of Robert. To forgive someone who had let his father die. To absolve decades of pain with a simple pardon. "I understand," Maya said quietly. "I am sorry for bothering you." She turned to leave, her hand on the door handle, when Robert spoke again. "Wait." Maya looked back. Robert was staring at a photograph on his desk. Maya could not see it from where she stood, but his expression had softened slightly. "Why do you care?" he asked. "About Eleanor Finch. Why does this matter to you?" Maya thought about Mr. Patterson, about all the patients she had lost, about the crushing weight of trying to save everyone and failing more often than succeeding. "Because I know what it feels like to carry guilt for something you could not control," Maya said. "And I know how it eats at you, how it changes who you are. Eleanor has been trapped for 57 years by one bad choice she made when she was 19. That does not excuse what she did. But it has to count for something that she has spent more than half a century trying to atone." Robert picked up the photograph, studying it. "Do you believe in karma?" he asked. "I do not know," Maya admitted. "Maybe." "Why?" He held up the photograph so she could see it. A group of people standing in front of a homeless shelter, holding an oversized check. Robert stood in the center, younger but recognizable. "For the last 15 years, I have been the anonymous donor funding the Morrison Street shelter," Robert said. "The shelter's 6 blocks from where my father died. I have given them over $200,000. I do not tell anyone. I do not claim it on my taxes. I just give every year, because I cannot stand the thought of someone else freezing to death in an alley while people walk past." Maya stared at the photograph, at Robert's younger face, smiling despite the pain behind his eyes. "I never knew why I did it," Robert continued. "I told myself it was practical. Good business karma. Helping the community. But the truth is I have been trying to save my father for 15 years. Over and over. Every person who gets a bed because of my money is my father getting another chance." He set the photograph down gently. "So when you ask me about karma, I think yes. I believe in it. I believe our actions ripple out in ways we cannot predict. I believe my father's death created something in me that has saved dozens, maybe hundreds of people. And if that is true, then maybe Eleanor Finch's guilt has also created something valuable." "So you will forgive her?" Maya asked, afraid to hope. Robert shook his head. "I cannot forgive her. That is not mine to give. My father is the one who died. But maybe I can meet her. Maybe I can tell her what her choice created. The good and the bad. The pain and the purpose. Maybe that is worth something." Maya felt tears burning behind her eyes. "When?" "Tonight," Robert said. "If this bridge of yours appears to the burdened, it should appear to me. God knows I have been carrying enough weight for long enough." They agreed to meet at midnight. Robert closed his office early, telling his assistant he had personal business to attend to. Maya called in sick for her next shift, the first time she had ever lied to her supervisor. They met on the street where Maya had first found the bridge. She had been worried it would not appear, that somehow her attempt to help had disqualified her from seeing it again. But as midnight approached and Robert stood beside her, the mist began to gather. Robert saw it immediately. His breath caught. "I thought you might be insane," he whispered. "But there it is." The bridge materialized slowly, like a photograph developing in reverse. Iron and wood and impossible blue flames burning in Victorian lamps. The same structure Maya had walked across weeks ago, unchanged and eternal. Eleanor stood at its center waiting. She looked exactly as Maya remembered. Navy dress, silver hair, eyes full of sorrow. But when she saw Robert walking toward her, something shifted in her expression. Recognition, perhaps. Or simply the understanding that her long wait had finally reached its conclusion. Robert and Maya walked onto the bridge together. Sound died. Time stretched. The world fell away until only the three of them existed in that strange space between dreaming and waking. Eleanor and Robert stood facing each other. Father and son separated by decades and death, and the unbridgeable distance between what was and what should have been. "You have his eyes," Eleanor said softly. "Your father's eyes." Robert said nothing. His jaw worked, emotions warring across his face. "I am sorry," Eleanor continued. "I know those words are inadequate. I know they cannot undo what I did or bring him back or heal your pain. But I am sorry. I have been sorry for 57 years. And if I could trade places with him, if I could go back and make a different choice, I would do it without hesitation." "Sorry does not bring him back," Robert said. His voice was rough, choked with decades of grief. "No," Eleanor agreed. "It does not." They stood in silence. The mist swirled around them, patient and eternal. Then Robert reached into his jacket and pulled out a worn leather wallet. From it, he extracted a small photograph. Creased and faded, handled so many times the edges had softened to felt. "This is the only picture I have of him," Robert said, holding it out. "Me and my father. I was 3. We were at a park. I do not remember that day. But I have carried this picture my entire life. Eleanor took the photograph with trembling hands. She stared at it for a long time, tears tracking down her face. "He looked kind," she whispered. "He was," Robert said. "From what little I remember. He was kind and he was trying and he did not deserve to die alone in an alley." "No," Eleanor said. "He did not." Maya visited the memorial garden every week. It became her ritual. Every Sunday morning before her shift, she would stop at the small plot of land where an impossible bridge had once stood. She would sit on the stone bench, surrounded by plants that defied seasonal logic, blooming in winter snow and summer heat with equal abundance. She would breathe in the strange peace that permeated the space and remember Eleanor's face when she finally let go. The garden had become something unexpected, a refuge for people who needed it. Maya was not the only regular visitor. She began to recognize faces. An older man who came at dawn, sitting in silence with his hands folded. A young woman who sketched the flowers in a worn notebook. A teenager who sometimes slept on the bench when nowhere else felt safe. The garden welcomed them all without judgment. And slowly, Maya understood what Eleanor had left behind. Not just a memorial, not just a monument to forgiveness, but an actual bridge. A crossing point for people who stood between who they were and who they needed to become. 6 months after Eleanor's release, Maya met someone new in the garden. It was early Sunday morning, frost still clinging to the grass despite the fact that spring should have arrived weeks ago. Maya had brought coffee and a book, planning to spend an hour in the garden's quiet before heading to the hospital. A man sat on the bench. Mid-40s, expensive suit rumpled like he had been wearing it for days, tie loosened around his neck. His face was haggard, eyes red-rimmed from crying or lack of sleep or both. He held a phone in his hands, staring at the dark screen as if it held answers he could not find. Maya almost left. The bench was occupied, the space claimed. But something in the man's posture stopped her. The same desperate hopelessness she had seen in her own reflection the night she first found the bridge. "Mind if I sit?" Maya asked. The man looked up, startled, as if he had forgotten other people existed. "It is a public bench. Not exactly an invitation, but not a rejection either." Maya sat at the opposite end, leaving space between them. She opened her book but did not read, her attention caught by the way the man's hands trembled against his phone. They sat in silence for several minutes. The garden hummed around them, alive with energy that had no logical source. Flowers that should not exist bloomed in impossible colors. The air felt thicker here, weighted with potential. "Do you believe in second chances?" the man asked suddenly. Maya closed her book. "I do. Even for people who have done unforgivable things. I believe unforgivable is a word we use when we are too tired to imagine redemption," Maya said carefully. "But I also believe some things require more than just wanting to change. They require action. Amends. Time." The man laughed bitterly. "Time is something I do not have." He held up his phone, showing Maya the screen. An email sat open, the words termination and investigation and criminal charges jumping out in bold text. "I am a financial advisor," the man said. "Was a financial advisor. I stole from my clients. Not all of them, just the ones who would not notice right away. Older folks, people who trusted me to handle their retirement accounts while they enjoyed their golden years. I took their money, and I gambled it on investments that benefited me. And now they have nothing." Maya felt her stomach tighten. "Why are you telling me this?" "Because you asked if you could sit. Because this garden feels like the kind of place where secrets matter less than truth. Because I have been sitting here since midnight trying to decide whether to face what I have done or drive my car into a bridge abutment and solve everyone's problems permanently." The words hung in the cold air between them. Maya's nurse instincts kicked into high gear, assessing for immediate danger. The man's hands were steady now. His voice was calm. He was not actively suicidal. He was just lost. "What is your name?" Maya asked. "David. David Chun. And before you ask, yes, I know how ironic it is that someone named Chun would steal from people's retirement. Trust me, I have heard every joke." Maya thought about Eleanor, about karma and consequences, and the long road to redemption. "David, I am going to tell you something that will sound impossible," Maya said. "But I need you to listen. Really listen. Can you do that?" David looked at her with eyes that had given up on hope, but had not quite surrendered to despair. "Sure. Why not? Today is already surreal enough." So Maya told him. About the bridge. About Eleanor Finch trapped for 57 years by one terrible choice. About Robert Whitmore and the shelter and the way pain could transform into purpose if you let it. about karma and forgiveness, and the hard work of becoming someone different than who you were. David listened without interrupting. When she finished, he stared at the garden around them with new understanding. "This place," he said slowly. "This is where the bridge was." "Yes. And it helps people. People who are burdened. People who need a second chance." "Yes." David stood up, walking to the edge of the garden where a small fountain bubbled despite no visible water source. He trailed his fingers through the water, watching ripples spread across the surface. "I have 11 clients whose lives I destroyed," David said quietly. 11 people who worked their entire lives to save for retirement, who trusted me to protect their future, and I stole it from them. The investigation is just beginning. When it is finished, I will go to prison. Probably for years. My career is over. My reputation is destroyed. My family will never forgive me. But your clients, Maya said. What happens to them? David turned to face her. That is why I am here. That is why I have been sitting in this garden all night. Because going to prison is easy. Facing consequences is straightforward. But living with what I have done, knowing I hurt people who cannot get that time or money back, that is the real punishment. And I do not know if I am strong enough to carry it. Maya thought about what Eleanor had said. About guilt without purpose being just another prison. You are right that you cannot give them back what you took, Maya said. But you can give them something else. You can make sure this never happens to anyone else. You can use what you know about the system, about how people like you operate, and you can help build safeguards. You can testify. You can teach. You can spend the rest of your life making sure your mistake becomes a lesson that protects thousands of other people. David's eyes filled with tears. That does not undo what I did. No, Maya agreed. But it gives your mistake meaning. It transforms your crime from pure destruction into something that might, eventually, prevent more destruction. That is not redemption. Not yet. But it is a start. They stood together in the garden as the sun rose higher, warming the frost into dew. Other people began to arrive. The older man who came at dawn. The young woman with her sketchbook. A family with small children who played among the impossible flowers while their parents sat on the bench holding hands. Maya watched them all, these people seeking refuge in a space created by forgiveness. And she understood something Eleanor had known for 57 years. That guilt could either destroy you or transform you, but the choice was always yours to make. I need to get to work, Maya said finally. But I come here every Sunday morning. If you want to talk again, I will be here. David nodded. I think I will stay a while longer. This place. It feels like I can breathe here. That is what it is for, Maya said. She left him standing by the fountain, his reflection rippling in impossible water, and walked toward the hospital. Her shift started in 30 minutes. There would be patients to care for, emergencies to manage, lives to save and lives to lose, and all the messy complexity of medicine happening in real time. But as Maya walked, she felt lighter. Not because David's burden had transferred to her, but because she had done what Eleanor taught her. She had stopped. She had listened. She had offered what help she could and trusted that the rest was up to him. The weeks that followed brought changes Maya had not anticipated. David Chin became a regular visitor to the memorial garden. Maya would arrive on Sunday mornings to find him already there, sometimes alone, sometimes talking quietly with other people who had found their way to the bench. He never tried to hide what he had done. Instead, he spoke openly about his crime, his guilt, his determination to make amends however he could. Word spread. Slowly at first, then faster. The memorial garden became known as a place where people could share their burdens without judgment. Where mistakes could be acknowledged without condemnation. Where the long road to redemption started with a single honest conversation. Maya found herself becoming a kind of informal counselor. People would seek her out on Sunday mornings, asking her to tell them about the bridge. About Eleanor and Robert, and the impossible night that created this space. She told the story over and over, each retelling slightly different, emphasizing different aspects depending on who needed to hear what. And the garden grew. Not physically. It remained the same small plot of land it had always been. But its influence expanded. People who visited the garden went back into the world changed. They made different choices. They offered forgiveness they had been withholding. They sought forgiveness they had been too afraid to ask for. Maya started keeping track. Not officially. Not in any formal way. But she noticed patterns. The older man who came at dawn started bringing homeless veterans to the garden, connecting them with services. The young woman with the sketchbook turned her drawings into a fundraiser for the Morrison Street shelter. The teenager who sometimes slept on the bench got connected with housing resources and started volunteering at a youth center. Ripples spreading outward from a single point. Karma in action. 3 months after meeting David, Maya arrived at the garden to find him waiting with someone else. An elderly woman, thin and frail, wearing a cardigan despite the summer heat. She held a cane in one hand and David's arm in the other. "Maya," David said. "This is Margaret Henley. She was one of my clients. One of the people I stole from." Maya's breath caught. She looked at Margaret, searching for anger or pain, or the righteous fury of a victim confronting her abuser. But Margaret's face showed only weariness and something that might have been curiosity. "David told me about this place," Margaret said. Her voice was soft but steady. "He said it was where people come to make things right. I wanted to see it for myself." They sat together on the bench, the three of them squeezed close. Maya could feel the tension radiating from David, the fear of rejection and punishment. She could feel Margaret's exhaustion, the weight of years and losses compounding. "I gave David my retirement," Margaret said. $300,000. Everything my husband and I saved over 40 years of marriage. We were going to travel, see Europe, visit grandchildren, live comfortably. And then my husband died, and I found out the money was gone, and suddenly I was 73 years old with nothing." David made a sound like a wounded animal. "Margaret, I am so sorry. I know those words are meaningless. I know I destroyed your life. I will never forgive myself for what I did to you." Margaret turned to look at him. "David." "Hush. I am not finished." He fell silent. "You destroyed my financial security," Margaret continued. "That is true. And I was angry. I wanted you to suffer. I wanted you to lose everything the way I lost everything. But then you called me. You showed up at my apartment with printouts of every transaction, every dollar you took, every lie you told. You did not make excuses. You did not ask for forgiveness. You just told me the truth." She reached out and patted David's hand where it rested on his knee. "And then you did something I did not expect. You spent 2 weeks researching every financial assistance program, every benefit I was eligible for, every resource available to someone in my situation. You connected me with a pro bono financial advisor who is helping me rebuild. You set up a payment plan to return what you stole, even though it will take you decades. You did not run from what you broke. You tried to fix it." Tears tracked down David's face. "It is not enough. It will never be enough." "No," Margaret agreed. "It will not bring back the life I planned. But it gave me something else. It gave me the knowledge that even people who do terrible things can choose to become better. And in a world that often feels hopeless, that matters." She looked at Maya. "David told me about the woman on the bridge, about how she spent 57 years trapped by guilt. I do not want that for him. And I do not want to spend whatever years I have left carrying anger that serves no purpose except to make me bitter." "So you forgive him?" Maya asked. Margaret considered the question carefully. Forgive is a complicated word. What David did was wrong. Unequivocally wrong. He hurt me and others, and those actions have consequences. But I release him from my anger. I choose not to let his mistake define the rest of my life. Is that forgiveness? I do not know. But it is freedom, and right now that feels more important. David was sobbing now, his shoulders shaking with the force of emotion too long contained. Margaret put her arm around him, this elderly woman comforting the man who had stolen her future, and Maya witnessed grace in its purest form. They sat together until David's tears subsided, until the garden's strange peace seeped into all three of them, until the weight they had been carrying redistributed itself into something bearable. "I am still going to prison," David said eventually. "The judge made that clear. Probably 3 to 5 years." "Good," Margaret said firmly. "You should. Actions have consequences. But you will come out different than you went in. And when you do, there will be work waiting for you. Important work. Teaching others. Preventing this from happening to more people. Paying back what you owe, both financially and karmically." She stood up, leaning heavily on her cane. "Now I need to get home. My granddaughter is visiting this afternoon, and I promised to make cookies. David, walk me to my car." David jumped up immediately, offering his arm. Before they left, Margaret turned back to Maya. "Thank you for creating this space," she said. "For giving people somewhere to go when nowhere else feels safe." "I did not create it," Maya said. "Someone else did. I just helped take care of it." Margaret smiled. Taking care is its own kind of creation. They left together, the elderly woman and the man who had wronged her, walking side by side through the garden toward whatever future waited. Maya watched them go, marveling at human capacity for grace even in the face of betrayal. The months continued to pass. Summer faded into autumn. Autumn surrendered to winter. The memorial garden bloomed through every season, immune to weather and time. Maya's life settled into new rhythms. Work and rest and Sunday mornings in the garden. She dated occasionally, but nothing serious. She made peace with the patients she could not save. She celebrated the ones she could. She learned to carry her work without letting it crush her. And she watched the garden's influence spread. Robert Whitmore visited once. He came on a Thursday afternoon, unexpected and unannounced. Maya happened to be there, sitting on the bench during her lunch break. She recognized him immediately. "Maya," he said, genuine warmth in his voice. "I was in the city for a meeting, and I wanted to see this place. To see what Eleanor left behind." They walked through the garden together. Robert touched the flowers, traced his fingers along the stone bench, stood by the fountain with his eyes closed. "I can feel her here," he said quietly. "Not like a ghost. More like an echo. Like the best parts of who she became after carrying all that guilt." "She changed you," Maya said. "Both of you changed each other." Robert nodded. "The shelter is doing well. We expanded last year. Added 30 more beds. Started a job training program. Last month we helped a man get his first apartment after 3 years on the streets. He cried when he got the keys. Stood there in the empty living room and just cried. Your father would be proud," Maya said. "Maybe," Robert replied. "But more importantly, I am proud. I built something that matters. Something that turns one person's tragedy into hundreds of people's hope. That feels like karma balancing itself out." They sat on the bench, two people connected by an impossible night, watching others come and go through the space Eleanor's sacrifice had created. "Do you think she is at peace?" Robert asked. Maya thought about Eleanor's face when she finally let go. The smile without sorrow. The lightness of someone released from decades of burden. "Yes," Maya said. "I think wherever she is, she finally found peace." Robert smiled. "Good. She earned it." He left shortly after, back to his trucks and his construction business and his quiet work of helping people. Maya stayed until her lunch break ended, soaking in the garden's peace before returning to the hospital's controlled chaos. 1 year after Eleanor's release, Maya noticed something new. The plaque that had appeared with the memorial garden had been supplemented. Someone she never discovered who had added a second inscription below the first. It read, "In memory of Eleanor Finch, who learned that forgiveness begins with forgiving yourself. And Henry Whitmore, whose death created ripples of kindness that continue to spread. May all who rest here find the courage to release what no longer serves them and embrace what they might become." Maya stood before the plaque for a long time, reading and rereading the words. Then she pulled out her phone and took a photograph. She sent it to Robert with a simple message. Someone remembered. His response came quickly. "The universe remembers. That is what karma means." Maya thought about that as she settled onto the bench. The universe remembering. Actions creating consequences that rippled outward in ways too complex to fully understand. Eleanor's choice to turn away leading to Henry's death, leading to Robert's shelter, leading to thousands of lives saved. David's theft leading to Margaret's suffering, leading to their mutual healing, leading to new safeguards protecting others. Every action mattered. Every choice created ripples. And sometimes, if you were lucky, your worst mistake could transform into someone else's salvation. The sun began to set, painting the garden in shades of gold and amber. Maya closed her eyes, breathing in the strange peace that permeated this impossible place. She thought about Mr. Patterson, the patient she had lost the night she found the bridge. She sent him gratitude for dying when he did, for creating the grief that led her to this garden, for becoming part of the chain of events that helped so many others. "Forgive me," she thought, "wherever you are. Forgive me for not saving you. And thank you for sending me somewhere I could learn to save myself." A breeze moved through the garden, warm despite the winter cold. Maya felt it brush against her face like a blessing. Like absolution. Like the universe acknowledging her prayer and granting what she had been seeking all along. Peace. The years continued. The garden remained. Maya kept her Sunday morning vigil, joined by an ever-growing community of people seeking second chances. David Chun served his time and came back changed, dedicating his life to financial literacy education for vulnerable populations. Margaret Henley lived to see her 80th birthday, surrounded by grandchildren and a life rebuilt from ruins. Robert Whitmore expanded his shelter into 3 locations, saving countless lives from the cold. And Maya learned what Eleanor had spent 57 years discovering. That guilt without purpose was prison. That forgiveness was not about deserving, but about releasing. That karma was not punishment, but balance. That every ending created space for new beginnings. The bridge between dreams had become permanent. Not as a structure of iron and wood, but as a living space where transformation happened one conversation, one confession, one act of grace at a time. And every Sunday morning, Maya sat on that bench and remembered. The impossible night. The ghost trapped by guilt. The son who chose healing over anger. The ripples spreading outward, touching lives in ways she would never fully know. She remembered. She honored. She continued the work. Because that was what karma demanded. Not perfection. Not flawlessness. Just the courage to face what you had broken and spend the rest of your life building something better from the pieces. The garden bloomed around her, eternal and impossible and absolutely real. And Maya smiled, finally at peace with all the weight she had carried, all the patience she could not save, all the mistakes she had made and would continue to make. Because she had learned the secret Eleanor spent decades discovering. Forgiveness was not a destination. It was a bridge, and the crossing never really ended. You just kept walking, kept growing, kept choosing to become someone slightly better than who you were yesterday. That was enough. That had always been enough. That would always be enough. The sun set fully. The garden lights flickered on, glowing soft and welcoming. And Maya stood up, ready to face another week, another shift, another chance to help someone cross their own impossible bridge. The work continued. The ripples spread. The karma balanced.